Okay, this is like the ninth time I'm doing this, so I hope I get this right. Anyway, what is randomness? The definition online at least says that randomness is the quality or state of lacking a pattern or principle of organization, that is, unpredictability. Now, when I was a kid, I would play with like dice. So I would roll dice over and over and over and try to predict which numbers they landed on. Uh, yeah, well, I actually got it up to 5 times sometimes, maybe even 6 times. So I would go like, roll, lands on 1. I would tell myself it's gonna land on 5 next, so I rolled, it lands on 5. Roll 3, 2, 4, 6, 1. I would keep rolling and I would actually get them eventually. And as shocking as it was, I realize now that it's because there's no such thing as randomness. It's all a sequence, all a pattern. Now, I love card games. I love games in general, but I love card games. I love strategy games. I play games like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Card Fight Vanguard, so on and so forth. I can name a list, but anyway. The point is, these card games, generally speaking, have decks of cards with 40 to 60, or in Magic's case, which we will be using for the rest of this example, 60 to about 300 cards. And you would shuffle these cards as much as you can in order to get a quote unquote randomized outcome. Now, of course, in Magic's case, we have to consider that there are up to 4 duplicates of any one card, excluding basic lands, in which case in Magic you can have as many as you please. On average I run about 18 to 22, but I digress. I'd still come across identical hands, with or without lands, even after all of that shuffling and shuffling and shuffling. Why? Because these are smaller sequences. It's not random. You may think it is because we shuffle them so many times, but at the end of the day, it's still a pattern, a sequence that is. Imagine if you shuffled and drew cards, 7 cards, for 10 hours a day. You'd eventually come across the sequence and notice a pattern of patterns, of patterns, of patterns. Those patterns would become so enormous eventually, but they're still patterns. Okay, so add 500 cards. No. Add a million cards to the 60 cards. Now draw 7 cards. Let's take it a step further actually. Make sure there are no duplicate cards in the deck. Now, okay, I know that Magic doesn't have 1 million individual cards, but bear with me, okay? You draw 7 cards from your deck of 1,060 cards, and then you look at your hand, you shuffle it back, and you draw 7 cards. It's hard to imagine that you would get the same exact hand as that first hand of 7 cards within a single lifetime, right? Well, it's still not random. We are just aware of the fact that the sequence takes far too long in our lifetime for us to see it over and over and over again. So, say you were given immortality to live for infinity. You made I don't know, you subscribe to me. Actually, this is a good time. If you subscribe to me now, you have a chance to win immortality itself. You will indeed become immortal. You cannot die. Just comment immortality in the comment section below and you will gain immortality. I digress. So, say you were given immortality because you subscribed to me down below, typed immortality, and you can live for infinity. That is when you will keep drawing new hands over and over and over from the 1,060 cards, and you will start to notice similarities, you will start to notice patterns. So let's say 100 years to a mortal human being is about a lifespan. They will never be able to see the sequences meet their final loop. But to you, an immortal subscriber, 100 years is probably nothing. Actually, it's probably just a day's worth of time. Technically speaking, it's worth no time because time is not a concept to someone that's immortal. So, imagine if human beings only lived for 1 year. Imagine that our entire lifespan. Well, okay, let me put it this way. Imagine that each month within our year is worth 2 years to us now. So January is 2 years worth to us. February is 2 years worth to us. Our lifespan within a year would be 24 years old, right? That'll be our entire lifespan. So, taking that into account, what about things like summer and winter, etc.? We would probably not. Okay, we wouldn't notice them as sequences, but we would probably see them as completely being random. So summer wouldn't be summer, it would just be a weather. Like it would be weather, you know? So now those same humans that only lived for 1 year start to live for our lifetimes. They begin to see the sequences of summer and winter and all this other stuff. They begin to see that it is not random, but happens within loops that were far too great for them to notice before, but now they can. So take us, for example. We're so small in terms of our lifespans that we believe in the illusion of randomness, when really and truly it doesn't, or rather cannot exist if there is infinity. If there was an end to infinity, maybe there would be an end to the sequence. And if the sequence ends, then it was overall a random event. But there would be no, well, because there would be no events to build on that sequence, because infinity didn't exist to compensate for additional sequences. What is the definition of infinity then? Limitless or endless in space, extent, or size. Impossible to measure or calculate, at least right now. Anything within infinity is not random, but may be taken as so by beings with a lifespan within infinity. My statement is, if infinity exists, randomness does not exist. So, at the end of the day, Yugi, Heart of the Cards might actually be a real thing. It might just be that he knows how to predict randomness on a scale of imagine that randomness actually exists, but it doesn't. It's just patterns. He sees the patterns, oddly enough, and that's how it works. So if infinity exists, randomness is nothing more than a concept. Where does that bring us? I would probably say that this is a step towards proving there is indeed a creator. Because if everything is intentional, a pattern, if everything is a pattern, then there must be something. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. I just wanted to say that I have 2 online shops.